It was time to walk the walk, okay? So giving my child up was never an option. The Reverend and I got to know each other. We spent some time together, and I explained to him that we're having difficulty saving money. We're homeless, but we're not hopeless. I can't save money quick enough to get some place to live. The problem was, and if you think about it, if you've got young children, your biggest expense next to your rent or your mortgage is what? Daycare. Had to learn about the food chain of daycare. You've got the au pair or the nanny that's there 24/7 with the child, a licensed, dependable daycare center. You got a dependable babysitter, maybe a family member you can count on. At the bottom of that food chain is something called a woman who keeps kids. Hey, she's not licensed, she's not registered, but she provided a service that allowed people like me to go to work. The hardest two things I had to do every day for a year was, number one, leave my little boy with somebody I did not know and hope everything was okay. Now, in this film, you saw Jaden Smith. He played my son as a 5-year-old. They did that for the dialogue. My little boy was not even 2. And keep in mind, there's only so much a 2-year-old can tell you about what happened that day. I leave him. He screams. He cries bloody murder. He don't know it, but I'm screaming and crying on the inside. And all I can say is, I'll be back. Papa got to go to work. I'll be back. The second hardest thing I had to do every day was work in this business, a business I absolutely love. Be surrounded every day by wealth, capital, and investment opportunities. And the second that market closed, you got to figure out real quick, do I have enough money for us to eat and get a hotel room? Many nights I didn't. Until we got into the homeless shelter set up by the Reverend, the Concord Plaza Hotel. 2 blocks away from Neiman Marcus. 2 blocks away from Gucci in downtown San Francisco is one of the worst ghettos in the United States. Think ghetto on steroids. Here was the deal at the Concord Plaza. You got to be out by 8 a.m. You cannot come in before 6 p.m. You're going to work or going to look for work. It is first come, first serve. When you leave the room, take everything in the room that's yours with you. There's no guarantee there will be a room for you when you come back. And if you leave it, your stuff won't be here. So every day for a year, you would see me, my son, his stroller, a duffel bag with all of his clothes in them, the biggest bag of Pampers in the world, a briefcase, my umbrella, 1 suit on my back, 1 suit in a hanging bag, and we hit it. Every day for a year. I had 2 suits, 1 blue and 1 gray. The joke around the office began, oh, that's Chris Gardner, he's reenacting the Civil War. Some days he's with the North, some days he's with the South. It's funny now. That shit wasn't funny there, man. Can I promise myself one day it's going to be different, right? Every day for a year. Working in a business, commission-only sales. All that running, you saw Will Smith doing that movie, the running was real. Having to make a decision every day. If I stay on this phone another 5 minutes, I can get this guy's account. I can earn this commission. But if I stay on this phone another 5 minutes, I'm going to miss the bus. If I miss the bus, I'm late to pick up my son from the babysitter. If I'm late to pick him up, that means I'm late to the shelter. If I'm late to the shelter, that means no more rooms. First come, first serve. Many days as a young guy trying to build a business, I had to stay on that phone. And that meant my son and I slept wherever we could, which included hotel lobbies, train stations, subway terminals, if the weather permitted, outside, in the park. Airports. This was pre 9/11. The big airports, a lot of them were open 24 hours. There was nothing unusual about seeing a man, a baby, and a whole bunch of stuff. My one residual hang-up from this experience in my life is I got this thing about bags. You will rarely see me without a bag. I got a room in my house with nothing but bags in it. If you can tie a knot in it, if it doesn't have a hole in it, that's a good bag. Hey, it won't leave me. I know that. It was Oprah, when we finally did her show, my son made my soul smile. She asked my son, what is the one thing that you remember about this time in your life? And what he said was the second most important thing he's ever said in his life. What he said was, all I remember is every time I looked up, my father was there. That's all I remember. And I got to tell you, if that's all that little boy remembers, that means I did my job. That means I broke the cycle of men who were not there for their children. So many nights, honestly, I let my little boy spend the night with friends. They had children. They loved them. But I also knew they were going to eat that night. I didn't have money to feed them. I'd sleep under my desk. Get up in the morning, freshen up as best I could, and I make the 200 phone calls every day. My son and I, too many times, too many nights, there was no place else to go. There was a bathroom in the subway station in Oakland, California. It was clean, and you could lock the door. And I had to teach my little boy how to play a game, and the game is called Shh. And that means that no matter what somebody says on the other side of that door, no matter how hard they pound on this door, we're not here. We're invisible. We lived like that for a year until I finally saved enough money for us to get some place to live. One of my favorite chapters in the book is called Roses in the Ghetto. We happened to be out looking. Oakland, California was cheaper. We could afford it. And we saw this little house, and there was a rose bush in the front. And I never saw roses in the ghetto in my life. And I thought, wow, this is the most beautiful place in the world. Turns out there was a little old man out here sweeping a slab of concrete that he called the yard. And we started talking, and I admired his roses, and I told him we were looking for some place to live, but we were having a problem. Even after I had saved the money, people made value judgments on my son and I when I show up. Where's your wife? What happened? What did that have to do with anything? I'm employed gainfully. I've got the money. We need the space. Let us rent. People wouldn't rent to us. I started explaining all this to that little old man, and he said, son, you don't have to tell me nothing. Y'all can move in here. We moved in. That didn't take long. That didn't take long at all. All right? We spent the night. First night, we slept on the floor. And we got up in the morning, and this is one of those things that will never leave me. My little boy gets anxious, and he says, Papa, you forgot this. We had to bring our stuff. We need this. He had seen me carry everything we owned, everywhere we went for a year. And I can't tell you what it feels like to explain to your son, well, you know what, son? We got a key now. We're home. We don't have to carry stuff anymore.